Another NHL team is facing a lawsuit regarding a cover-up situation. We also have more news on the Blackhawks scandal. Settlement talks are supposed to begin today between Kyle Beach and the Blackhawks. One of the more prominent NHL agents representing players is calling for Gary Bettman to go. Plus, we have news on Vitaly Kravtsov, Carey Price, and from the waiver wire as well. All that coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news here today. Let's start with a couple of the quicker items. First up on the NHL waiver wire. Yesterday, the Senators have placed forward Scott Sabourin on waivers for the purpose of being assigned to the minors. That process is cleared, so nobody claimed Sabourin. He will be assigned to the American Hockey League's Belleville Senators organization. We also had an update on Carey Price. We know that he entered the player assistance program, which is a minimum of 30 days. According to head coach Dominic Ducharme, he's indicated that they are expecting Carey Price in town sometime soon, so it's not expected for him to be remaining in the program beyond the 30-day time frame. That's the minimum required. I would imagine, though, it's going to be a little while before we see Carey Price in game action, considering how long he's been away from the team. He's obviously going to need some time to skate and practice and obviously, get ready to play. So I would be fair to assume that, we're still not quite to that 30-day mark. So he'll be out for a little bit longer, should be arriving with the Habs soon, and then probably a couple of weeks of training and practicing before he gets into a game would be my expectation. So hopefully maybe by the middle of the month or so. Hard to say exactly, but at least it's good news is that he's coming out of the program and rejoining the team, and hopefully we'll be able to play in the near future. Now, of course, we know that the Rangers have a disgruntled winger in Vitaly Kravtsov, who's been surrounded by trade rumors after it became public that he had requested a trade from the Rangers organization. At this point, he had gone back to Russia, refused to be assigned to their American Hockey League affiliate. Basically, since he was drafted so highly, he's kind of been in a situation where the last couple of years where he essentially wants a legit top 6, top 9 role, or he's not going to go anywhere else. So, the previous regime with the Rangers, I'm not sure if they made more promises or what happened with that relationship. Obviously, Chris Drury, the GM of the Rangers now, has been with the organization a long time and would have been somewhat involved with the previous guys running the team to, when it comes to drafting him and dealing with him before. So I don't know exactly where things stand with the relationship, but it sounds like there's really not any interest to try to repair things and move forward. I know originally he was cut from training camp, asked to be assigned to the minors, refused assignment, head back to Russia. Right after that, the Rangers ran into a few injuries and tried to make amends and call him up and bring him back, and he has not come back. So at this point, they've actually agreed to loan him to the KHL where he can play with the tractor team. I'm not sure if he'll make a return to North America this year or not. It probably will depend if a trade materializes. But look at the situations we saw previously with disputes between the Rangers and Elias Anderson. Even look to Jesse Puljujarvi in the Edmonton Oilers. He played over in Finland for an entire year where he had essentially noted that he wanted a trade. There was a bunch of changes in the organization. They were able to convince him to come back, smooth things over, and now he's a pretty prominent member of that team. So this might be a different situation because the Rangers just went through a regime change. I don't see they're doing that again anytime soon. So I think it's probably likely he does get traded, but the Rangers can be patient with this and see where things go. They're probably in their best interest to let him play a little bit over there. If he does well, it could certainly impact, pushing his value upwards, right? So it was rumored before they wanted a fairly high draft pick for him or another comparable young player, maybe in a similar situation, like a fairly highly rated prospect. So we'll see where this goes. But for now, he's actually going to play over in Russia for the time being at least. Well, we've seen the ongoing scandal here with the Blackhawks has dominated the news headlines for quite a few days at this point. One of the NHL's more prominent player agents, Alan Walsh, on his Twitter feed, and I'll show you the picture here of the tweets in a second, basically calls out Gary Bettman, and says it's time for Gary to go. Says he's spoken to several NHL owners who feel the same way. Now, for the commissioner to be ousted, essentially he works for the owners. It's going to take a big majority of those owners to feel that way and want him gone before that were to happen. But after the press conference yesterday between Commissioner Bettman and Bill Daly talking to the press, there was a lot of people that are really fed up, really disgusted with how it was handled, really not happy with the direction of a lot of things and regarding this scandal and everything else. And not only just this one here, but like looking at the Akeem Alou situation and other things in the past, like the whole culture of the game in the league needs to change, and it needs to change for the better. You can tell that, like I said yesterday, Bettman and Daly are lawyers. It was mostly lawyer speak. I think they're concerned about future lawsuits, which we're also going to talk about here today. And, obviously, there's just a lot that they're trying to protect. It's always that protect and cover up mentality instead of just being more forthcoming, taking ownership and, really giving a real sincere apology. Like Bettman, I know a lot of people said that Bettman apologized, but to me, he really didn't. That was kind of a half-ass apology, in my opinion. Essentially, he said he was sorry for what he went through, but he didn't specifically say, I apologize that we didn't, that things didn't happen sooner to take care of this, right? So to me, there's obviously a lot going on. We've seen everything going on with the Players Association. Players are mad about how Donald Fair and the PA handled things. And as I mentioned before, this is not the end. This is certainly going to be a much bigger picture here. And of course, settlement talks, as I mentioned, between the Blackhawks and Kyle Beach's attorney we're kicking off today, so we'll see where that goes. Now, Elliotte Friedman mentioned on the latest podcast of 32 Thoughts that he was told that maybe the reason why the fine from the NHL to the Blackhawks was so small and $2 million, even though Gary Bettman vehemently defended that amount and said it was fair and substantial, and appropriate and all that, which most people disagree with and think, okay, you fined the Devils $3 million over a decade ago for cap circumvention. So what you're saying is cap circumvention is way worse than abuse cover-up, right? And that's kind of where I stand on it. But at the same time, Friedman's saying, and this does make sense, that the league might have gone a little easier on them because of the likely large amounts that they're going to be paying out to Kyle Beach, possibly the victim in Michigan as well, even though he's not directly connected to the Blackhawks because of their lack of inaction, you could say. That, it had an impact on that other situation even happening. Aldrich could have been out of hockey or behind bars, and that never happened. So there is a suit from I guess, I don't know what they're referring to in the legal standpoint. I don't know if it's John Doe 2 or whatever they're calling. I'm not sure what the anonymous title that they've given him in the lawsuit right off. I can't remember. But either way, the Michigan team that was impacted here by this predator, they're going to have some hefty payouts. There's no doubt about it. When it comes to Kyle Beach, you have to think that they're going to be looking at the settlement and say, okay, he came in to the NHL as a high first-round draft pick. He was, a big power forward, 6'3" or 4", well over 200 pounds, had a lot of potential. And this happened before he could even get into an NHL game. So they're going to argue that obviously this had a major impact on his life and his mental well-being and impacted his ability to play up to his capabilities on the ice. You have to, just think about what the potential could have been for career earnings. That's what they're going to be going for in a lawsuit. And then, of course, you have to tack on, pain and suffering on top of that, right? So, Friedman wondered, and Jeff Merrick talking on 32 Thoughts, that maybe they'll kind of come up with a figure they think is fair for career earnings, what it could have been if he would have realized full potential, and then maybe double it because of pain and suffering. So, could it even be in the hundreds of millions? It's really hard to say. I'm not sure what the figure is going to be. It's all speculative at this point, but it could be substantial. So, as much as we're disappointed with the amount the NHL fined them, they are going to pay, and they're going to pay dearly, but it's still not enough here, in my opinion, at all. I think the NHL should have come down much harder, especially because when the NHL was asked about when they were first notified about this, they were told about the possible pending litigation back in December, and they said the reason why they never conducted more of an investigation on their own at that point or really did anything more about it was, according to the Blackhawks, they were told by Blackhawks counsel that there was no merit to the accusations. Well, clearly the report from the actual investigation that did take place contradicts that pretty heavily and shows there was a lot of guilty parties here in covering up this whole abuse scandal. So why would the NHL not take that and be like, okay, you told us there was no merit. There is huge merit here. There's a lot more to this. So you're going to be fined very heavily and steep. That's the way I would have handled it as commissioner, and I'm really surprised that they didn't. You would think they'd be trying to get in front of this and really try to help change things, because this is an extremely bad look on the entire league. It's a bad press for everybody, even the ones that are not guilty. You kind of get drug into it by association, right? So they need to create a better environment for the league and work on the league's reputation, because there's a lot of people, myself included, that are extremely disappointed with how the league themselves has handled this. And as I mentioned, you could kind of tell from Daly and Bettman both being trained lawyers that essentially they're probably concerned about other lawsuits. You know, when something big comes out, it empowers other victims that have never spoken up before to do so. We've already seen cases like that connected to, the case of Kyle Beach providing other people the strength to do that, right? Now, there's a new lawsuit that's likely coming. We had news today. This is not a brand new story because there was word of it before, but the litigation is actually proceeding here. The lawsuit's about to be filed. Apparently, there was, I think, preliminary talks between the lawyers and the Penguins, but essentially the Penguins organization is facing a suit, two actually, one from a former assistant coach of their AHL team and one from his spouse. So Jerard Fagerberg, who was an NHL player, then became coach afterwards, was coaching with their Wilkes-Barre Scranton AHL farm team affiliate. He was an assistant coach there, with Clark Donatelli being the head coach, and of course his wife Erin is involved in this as well. So what's being accused on the assault side of things was that Donatelli had assaulted Scaldi's wife, and they waited apparently a little while to go forward with it, but apparently they talked to Donatelli, and there's a whole more details that are still kind of emerging here, but essentially they were assured that it was going to be taken care of and that Donatelli was going to seek help. It wouldn't happen again. Bill Guerin is reported, accused of saying that they had to keep it quiet, which is like the cover-up aspect of the thing. Of course, Bill Guerin, current Minnesota Wild GM and former assistant GM with the Penguins, of course, also associated with USA Hockey, who just had to dispose of Stan Bowman because of those other Hawks allegations and scandals going on. This is just not a good look here. So when it comes to his wife, like I said, she's accusing the fact that the assault was reported and not followed up on. And Jerard Fagerberg is saying that essentially because they reported the incident, that it's not long after his employment was terminated, and he feels that it was a wrongful dismissal, that it was related to the fact that he spoke out against the wife's assault. Essentially, that the Penguins basically found a way to get rid of him. They're claiming that it was COVID-related cutbacks. So again, this is a pretty big deal. I mean, they've named Bill Guerin in this lawsuit. They've also named Penguins owners Muriel and Ron Burkle. Like, this is not a good look for the league. So you have to think, as I mentioned, that if there's been any other situations of any type of abuse or assaults or anything, that some of these victims, if they've not spoken up before, might feel more empowered to do so now. That's just the way things go in life. When you're afraid to speak up, and when you see other situations, people doing it, you kind of helps you come forward. So it's not a good time for the NHL. Obviously, not a good look for all these situations. But we'll have to follow this lawsuit up now and see where it goes. But essentially, lawsuits are going to be dominating the NHL headlines here for days and weeks to come. Let me know your thoughts on everything discussed today down in the comment section. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.